Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Odd Ones. Today, again, you can see Lara's not here. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning. We have had a very long day, which I will talk about later on. Some fun things, some good, wholesome fun. But again, we'll talk about that. I'm sorry, I just sat down. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. I do want to. The beginning part of this is going to be kind of short. It's going to be the meat and potatoes of this podcast, but I do want to talk about it in more detail with Lara later on. But the later part of it's just going to be some behind the scenes, some little bit of, like I said, what we did today and how creating experiences is so important for you and your children and for just growing up as a person and as a family. But again, the meat and potatoes is, first of all, don't forget to like, subscribe, and all of that good stuff. Also, check out our email where you can send in questions and we will answer them live right here. Not live, but recorded for you. And if we get enough, then we will start going live on Facebook and YouTube and all those other good places. So, recently, if you don't have kids, you might not understand some of the lingo that I'm about to throw out, but I'll explain it. Recently, Aaron, who is our son, he is the next oldest one. Dayla's already moved out and started her life and everything like that. About to get a little puppy dog, so pretty excited for that. But Aaron, he is 16 going on 17, and and this is going to sound negative whenever I say it, but I don't mean it negatively because I've been in his same shoes, so I can't judge. Um, but he has recently had an IEP meeting, which is where they go over your grades, see, if you need any assistance or anything like that. And in that, pretty much, Lara went to that, and his grades aren't great, right? And this is a struggle that we've had with him and the other kids and pretty much everybody. Where at the beginning of the year they do great, and then later on throughout the year, because of whatever reason, their grades start slipping. But this year, same thing happened with him. Like clockwork, this has happened, right? And Lara, reached out to him. They had a half day that day, so we're like, we don't send him to school on half days. It just doesn't make sense for us. It doesn't make sense for them. He wanted to go, but it just doesn't make sense. The kids get out at 12 o'clock. Like that's literally halfway through my work day. So we just keep them home on half days. They can do schoolwork at home on their computers, all that good stuff. But Lara reached out to him and said, "Hey, what's going on? Like, why is this like a habitual thing? Like every single year, the same exact thing happens." And a little bit more background on him specifically. Again, we've had situations like this where in fifth grade was whenever I met him, fifth or fourth grade, and we wanted to hold him back. And the teachers were like, no, the principal was like, no, we're not going to do that because even though he's failing, if he doesn't move forward, then, he might not develop mentally or like socially the way that he's supposed to, or he might also actually he might not graduate because if he gets held back again, then he'll be 18 and he'd age out of school. He won't be able to go to school because he's a full grown adult. Some people start school later and they turn 18 in their senior year, and that's okay, but he would be in like it's right into 12th grade or 11th grade at 18. They don't want that. So told us that we're like, okay, we see that you're not going to do this for us, so whatever. So next year he goes into sixth grade, which is our county is really weird. They have like fifth grade, which is still grade school, and then they had a middle of the way thing, which was like their sixth grade, which was cool. I like that. I like that the sixth graders had like this transitional period where they're just alone. All the sixth graders in our county are alone in this one school, and then they move into the high school. But nowadays with Juliet, she's It's really annoying. They did sixth grade at the old school, at the grade school, and then they moved all of them to the high school in seventh grade. It's really crazy. I don't really like it, where there's seniors and seventh graders in the same building. Anyway, that's a rant for another time. Um, so anyway, Aaron's in the sixth grade center, and again, should have had plenty of opportunities to do what he needed to do, and just didn't make that happen. So he ends up getting held back that year. I can't remember what grade he was in whenever COVID happened, but that was a whole thing that held him, held him up, not held him back, but held him up. But in sixth grade, he got held back, and then he did sixth grade again, and all the way up until now he's in 10th, or I think he's in 11th grade now. Um, and so that brings us up to current speed. And back then, it was more of a it was grades, but it was also attitude towards teacher, because of everything that was going on at home. I'm sure had a role in this. He had a real hard time with authority. Again, another story for another time. That's when Lara involved as well. That story would be. But so he and I, or not he and I, what am I saying? So now he's in 11th grade. He's doing his thing, and no, 10th grade. I can't remember. I get all my kids' grades mixed up. But anyway, 10th grade, I think he's in. Um, and he, again, same thing. All this time, we have been just like, Aaron, you got to do this. Aaron, you got to do this. If you get held back, you're not going to be able to graduate with your class, all this other stuff, or you're not going to be able to graduate at all. So if you don't pass this year, you're gonna fail. And like, we stressed to him at the beginning of the year, like, if you don't succeed, you're really going to struggle in your senior year, because you're not going to have enough points to graduate, and you're going to have done all this schooling for no reason, right? Because GPA. So again, Lara had the IEP meeting. They were like, well, and also he had, I don't know if she was a guidance counselor at the time. She used to be a guidance counselor, but my third grade teacher, who is amazing. I'm not going to name drop. I want to, but amazing teacher. She actually followed me from second grade to third grade because I had dyslexia, and she went back to school specifically for dyslexia for me, which is wild. Literally best teacher ever. And then by the time I was in high school, she moved into guidance counselor, which I feel really bad because I dropped out of school, and I feel like I disappointed her. But we've talked since then. But anyway, she was helping him last year to kind of scoot by into this year, and she gave us some options. But um, again, had the IP meeting. They've given Lara solutions, and Lara calls me, and I'm just like, all right, well, she called him first actually, and was like, what's going on? And he's like, well, school's just not for me. That's all I needed to hear. Okay. So I came home, talked to him, was like, all right, you know, if that's the case, you're not old enough to go to school yet, like a technical school yet. So you're gonna have to, you know, go get your GED. You're gonna have to get your driver's license, and you're gonna have to get a full time job. He has a little ice cream shop job that's like 2 days a week or whatever, but he has to do those things to be successful. And then, whenever he turns 18, he can go, and either 17 or 18, he can go get some kind of tech job. All of that to be said, right? I just wanted to give you background. First of all, again, I can't judge anybody because I did the same path, 11th grade. I was like, all right, school really isn't for me. High school is not for me. I've never excelled at this. I know what I want to do. I thought I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to do culinary arts. I'll get into that more here in a second too, because I don't know if I should make a whole video about that, but I really want to stress, like, culinary arts is not for everybody. So I am thoroughly under the belief that if school is not for you, right? If doing the math and the science and the reading you have to have those core things. But if you're getting into algebra and pre-algebra and all this other stuff, and it's really just not clicking for you, and like you're not planning on going to college, you're not planning on going to be a lawyer or a doctor or any of these different things. I am thoroughly under the belief, and I don't know why more teachers and principals and things like that, and I get it from a financial reason. Um, if there's not kids in the school, then they don't get grants, and that is just what it is. There's solutions to that, and I'll get into that later. But if there's no kids in the school, there's no money coming in. And it's a really sad reality. So, um, like I said, I am thoroughly under the impression that if you're not going to like go and do these professions, why waste 4 good years of your life, right? Doing, let's say, um, freshman to senior year. Why waste your time? Freshman, it's kind of hard because you're still like you can't you're not old enough to have a car or really getting a job at that age is super hard. I've noticed that with Aaron. It's really hard for him to get a job. Right now in his age bracket, again, 16. Back in the day, people would hire you at 16 and you could work and all this other stuff. But now it's like everywhere he wants to work, including like Home Depot, Lowe's, things like that, you have to be 18 years old. And it's like, why? Why do you have to be 18 to stock shelves at these different places? Or like certain restaurants, you have to be 18 to serve alcohol, but the law, like you can't drink until you're 21. That doesn't really make any sense to me. But anyway, so he's kind of struggling finding that secondary job or like, the full-time job, but he's on the right path. Um, but again, to me, why are you going to waste your time doing that, especially if you know somebody, right? So if you know somebody, like say for instance, we're wanting to get Aaron into HVAC. So if we knew somebody that he could apprentice under, that would be the first thing I would be doing. I would be asking that person, "Hey, could Aaron come in and apprentice under you and, start getting that education from you?" And then whenever he gets into school, he kind of has that background already. And then he can come and work for you full time. Um, but that's what I recommend at least. But it's just crazy to me that we live in this world, and this is a rant about education, where we live in this world where they're pushing college, pushing college, pushing college, and vast majority of people are not meant for college. Like vast majority of people, a lot of people are going to be the fast food manager, which we need. A lot of people are going to be maintenance. That's what I am. I keep a whole entire block running. Like me and my partner that I work with, we keep a whole entire block of our city running because that's our domain, right? Um, and then you know, b- trash workers, all these different people that keep our society working. We need them, but we're not paying them, and we're also not promoting that in our schools. Like welding, they used to teach welding, and they don't really do that anymore. My kids' high school, I don't think. Um, another big one that is really kind of like swept under the rug is videography and editing. Like, yeah, you might not be the next Mr. Beast, but you could be making a real living if you started at a young age doing YouTube and taught these different lessons. Like, I don't even think I went to go see if Juliet could become, or not become, but do like photography in school, and they don't even have a photography or a yearbook in her school anymore. That I know of. I may have missed something, but as far as I know, they don't even have a yearbook anymore. So they don't learn those skills of editing and photography and how to set up a shot or anything like that. Things that I should have taken advantage of whenever I was in school. Um, and just like basic things. Like I think they still have culinary arts there. I'm not 100% sure on that. But and then just on the flip side of that, a million people have complained about this, but I'm gonna put my hat in the ring too. Um, they're not teaching people how to balance books. They're not teaching people the things to get to a bachelor's degree and how to run a business. They're not teaching that. So it's like, why are we stressing these things like math, science, reading, these basic things, but not the things that make the world go round? It's like we're trying to push these standardized tests, but not teaching core skills that people need. How to read a tape measure. Like everybody needs to know that. Whether you're a man, a woman, an office person, or a construction guy, everybody needs to learn how to read a tape measure. They have cheater ones, and I use that because I was never taught how to read a tape measure. Um, but everybody should know how to do that because everybody's going to be measuring things in their house. You need to measure a door to get a couch in. You need to measure, the hole where your refrigerator is going to go. Everybody needs to know these simple things, and they're just not teaching them. You know, um, or they'll have one little tiny segment and all of your education towards measurements. And then after that, you don't know them and you have to relearn them whenever you're going into the trade that you're wanting to go in. But then a whole segment of the world doesn't know these skills. And that's why we have to pay so much to go and get them done somewhere else. Um, anyway, that tangent's done, I think, as far as education and my frustrations with that and all that. So all of that part does leave our society in a quite a pickle where we have these people who do go get the higher education and get these jobs. And I'm not going to get started on the, hey, you can't get a job out of college situation. I don't know about that. I'm not in college or I haven't been through college. Um, but you have all these people coming out of college getting jobs that are paying much more than the people who go and get a technical education, that also has benefits and retirement plans and all these things just because they went to a little bit more schooling. Where this person's, the people who went and got a technical education or just learned on the job, they're getting a lower income and lower rates of pay and lower, um, benefits or no benefits just because they chose to learn on the job or learn in a field that you don't have to have 8 years of college, 10 years of college just to get a certificate. They chose a different route and they have to suffer because of that. That just doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, um, all of that to be said, with Aaron and with your children, I do recommend if your child and only and they know, right? By the time they're 16, 17 years old, they don't know what it's like out there in the real world, but you can look at your child and see like, oh, they're not cut out for nursing. That's another job that you don't have to go to. You still have to go to quite a bit of schooling, especially if you want the higher echelon payment and jobs and things like that. But just become a simple nurse, you don't have to have super high education. You just go to school for a few years and now you're helping people and you have a lot of job opportunities. But you know, we're really and really I'm talking about the people who are wanting technical jobs like editing or, becoming a welder or anything, anything to do with your hands. Um, your child well enough to be able to look at them and say, uh, you know, they're really not cut out for the higher education route. Like they're kind of shy, so they're not going to be a lawyer. They're kind of, they're dyslexic. I'm dyslexic, and so that's why I'm kind of talking on this. So they're not great at reading. Um, and so, later on, whenever they're going through college, they might have a really hard time with that. Not saying it's impossible, but they're having a really hard time with that. And maybe something with their hands is going to be a lot easier. And a good example of that, right, is, I went through high school struggling the whole way through because I wasn't good at reading. So, well, let's start with high school. In high school, first period class, culinary arts, loved it. I failed it because of the classwork part of it, but the kitchen part of it, I loved it. I wanted to be in there every single day. I didn't want to leave that class. I wanted to be in there all the time. So, culinary arts, average math, science, reading, social studies, French, again, dyslexic, but because I have to have, no, that was my 10th grade year. But anyway, um, I had to have a language, so they put me in French. Doesn't make sense. I'm an English speaking person that has dyslexia in a and that lives in Florida, so it's better to have a bilingual, like have Spanish as a secondary language than it ever would be to have French. But neither here nor there. So again, loved my culinary arts class. They took me out of it in 10th grade, not because of the grade in the class, but because I was failing and I had dyslexia, but I was failing my math class. So they put me into a intensive math, intensive reading, science, social study. I had to have I can't remember all my classes, but I had to have a language. So I had that one year, and then I had to have PE, which I hated. But I had to have that another year, and then um, they also had me in regular math and a regular math class. I don't think I had a regular reading class or anything like that, but yeah, I did. I had English. So they had the person that was struggling in reading and math in two math classes in one day, every single day, and took them out of the one class that brought them joy, right? Luckily nowadays they seem to be doing a lot better with that. Like Aaron, he struggles with the same things, but they have the core classes, but he still has like aerospace, he still has like a technical class, like a computer class, and he also has agriculture. So they're doing a lot better with that, but it's like, man, they really set me up for failure, right? Is what I'm saying, and really not enjoying school. Um, but if you are in my mom's case, where it's like you're looking at your son, you're seeing him struggle, you want him to succeed, you want him to graduate, but why at this cost, right? So, I started skipping school. I didn't do anything bad. Literally, I didn't do anything like drugs, alcohol, anything like that. The worst thing I did was go with my girlfriend and go to the park and hang out there and literally just eat snacks and do, like paint projects and stuff like that. Really, really basic things. Or like same thing with my friend. Me and him, we would just go to the Dollar Tree and get some snacks and then go back to my house whenever my mom left. Um, but my mom found out and she's like, "Are you done with school?" "Yep." "Okay, let's take you out." And I started working, right? I started working. And then eventually I went to culinary arts. And that's where I'm kind of going with all this. In culinary arts, uh, I excelled. Literally, first day was about like the safe surf. I was actually, because we didn't know about it, we just moved to Jacksonville, Florida. Moved there so I could get a job opportunity and wound up getting into school instead. And the sign up I was like a day late for the sign up, but they were just like, okay, we need one more person in here anyway. Go ahead, take your safe surf class, take your, all your prereq stuff. And so I did that. I had one night to study my safe surf test, and I passed it with flying colors because I was interested in it. That is the whole key to this whole conversation that we're having tonight. Is if your kids are interested in something, push them towards that thing. Doesn't always pan out, and I'll get to that in a second, but for the most part, if you push them towards that thing, really take interest in that with them, it'll make them much more likely to succeed in whatever they're trying to do. Not guaranteed, but makes it a lot more likely versus pushing them in the direction that you're wanting them to go. So my mom, again, she saw that I like culinary arts, pushed me in that direction, went and did that, excelled in the whole entire class. I think I failed like one test, and that's because it was really stupid. It was really, really stupid. It really, it's still even freaking 13 years later, it still frustrates me. Um, Making a sauce, my professor, my chef, whatever you want to call him, was like, "Hey, make it your own." And so I did. And then he's like, he tasted it. He's like, "Everything's wonderful. I would have given it a 100. You did better than anybody else, except for it just didn't taste exact. Like you added one too many ingredients and it made it off. And pretty much I have to give you one bad point or it looks bad on me kind of thing." It's like, okay, whatever. Frustrating, but whatever. So, that was a 9-month course or like a year course because of some financial stuff that they added, like learning the back of the house stuff, or front of the house stuff. So past that, graduated from there and started doing my culinary career. And this is where I was going with the whole, like, I do not recommend the culinary career for anybody. Um, I actually had a person that I worked with, um, that hit the nail on the head. The culinary career. Now, this is a very much blanket statement. I do know that there are some great opportunities for people. I know if you follow certain career paths, you can have high achievements, financial freedom, these different things, but it comes with a lot of high cost, and I'll get there in just a second. But I kind of want to finish up the education part and then lead into culinary arts. But so yeah, my culinary career at the beginning was a lot of fun. Um, and the point that I'm trying to make with education is if you push somebody towards something that they want to do, they will have a much easier time getting the certificates and getting the education that they need versus pushing them through 12 years of school just to get them a diploma to get them to that test. Like pretty much, let me put it this way. I was making money in a career that I wanted to be in, enjoying the career that I was in, probably 2 to 3 years before anybody else in my grade, anybody else that I went to school with, aside from one guy that I knew that went into the military shortly out of school. But other than that, everybody else either didn't get an education or went into a career path that took them, 5 to 8 years to really start seeing any kind of financial gain. No, not even financial gain because they're having to pay back their student loans, but they were, long story short, before they were making money. Where I was making money in the career that I chose within the first year of getting out of school. Um, so again, push your kids if they are mildly into metalworking, get them into welding. If they're mildly into working with their hands at all, any kind of construction, electrician, anything like that. If they enjoy taking things apart and putting them back together, put them into these different education fields. So, a lot. That's actually why I like my job now doing maintenance, is because I enjoy taking things apart, figuring out how it works, and then putting it back together in a way that will make it work. Um, so that's pretty much it for the education part, and helping your kids, and that's what we're doing with Aaron. Is he expressed interest in doing something in construction. I recommended electrician work. My brother is an electrician. He recommends, and he works closely with AC people as well. And he recommends HVAC because they can go into sales. And that's kind of like when everybody's starting to give out, go into sales and you'll have an easier time. Same thing with culinary arts. So now we're going to get into the culinary arts part of it, and then we'll get into the like slice of life part of the podcast. So again, I want to put a big preface here by saying, hey, if you work at Disney and you work your way up from, the people who work at the like, let's use Universal instead because I like Universal better. If you're working at the Harry Potter freaking restaurant there, and you're just putting out the exact same food, well, that's probably the bottom of the barrel. But you can probably work your way up to working at the resorts and higher dining and things like that, and start making more money, and then eventually become, the head chef there and make a pretty good income, right? Um, that being said, vast majority of food jobs are not that. Vast majority of food jobs probably have a very, very low ceiling of um, finances that you're going to get, and very low bar for how high you're going to get in that restaurant. Especially if you're working at a mom and pop place. But let me tell you what this lady said to me, and pretty much this was the last. Not pretty much. This was the last, and I will never work in restaurant industry again if I can help it. It's been a long time since I've been wanting to make this video. Lara and I have talked about this a few times on podcast, but I just delete it. But the lady said, who was working with me, she was like, yeah, the restaurant industry. She was like, I don't think you, and she was not my boss or anything. And she saw the skills that I had, and it was very clear that I was good at what I did. But she was like, I don't think the restaurant industry is for you. You're not an alcoholic. You don't, I know I said the word earlier, but you don't do, nose candy or anything like that. Um, you have a good family. You know, all these different things. The restaurant industry is not cut out for you. And she was like, the only people that should be in the restaurant industry are people who do those said things that I said before, or people who are fresh out of prison. And also, Anthony Bourdain said it best himself. A restaurant is like a pirate ship. And it is what it is. There's a lot of good things that come out of restaurants. There's a lot of great job opportunities for people who are struggling in their lives and are trying to work their way out of it. I've seen it. I've also seen people who, may have disabilities or things like that work their way through a restaurant and then work their way out of a restaurant and go into something better. Um, but I'll tell you guys my backstory as far as restaurant industry goes. First two jobs was, I worked at Popeyes, and then fresh out of school, like fresh out of my culinary program, I had to leave Jax and move back to where I'm from, which, especially at the time, was a very small rural town that does not, it's working its way up to having more restaurants now, but it did not at the time have hardly any restaurants at all. And pretty much it had like three. It had one good restaurant which I wound up working at, and then like a few like everything's fried restaurants. Um, and so my first job out of school was actually at Winn-Dixie. I worked at the deli there. It was an okay job, get me through. But then it's just through applications and somebody kind of putting in a word for me, I found myself applying at this place. I can't say because the place is private, and it's also like I don't want to dox myself too much. But it was a private. I can say this: a private fish camp that was seasonal, which wasn't ideal, and that's actually why I ended up leaving that place and management. And that's going to be a huge thing that you're going to notice in this. But I start working there. Actually put in my, like, I went to apply and did my interview and everything there. And they actually didn't want me at first. There was a bunch of other people who were fresh out of out of culinary arts, and they wanted somebody with a little bit more experience than what I had. And they end up calling me back later on, even though they told me that they didn't want me. But because I hung out with one of the other guys that's been there forever, um, the first person didn't work out. They just, I don't remember why, but they just didn't work out. And the guy that got me on there, we ended up being very good friends. we became very good friends until he switched shifts and then got brainwashed and then came back and then he's like, "Oh yeah, well, why did I not like you?" But anyway, we'll get to that in a minute. But so I start working there. I loved it. That was a great job. I worked night shifts there, so that meant I, wasn't just flipping eggs and all this different stuff. I was coming up with really high end menu, and really for the clientele that we had, it was a little bit too high end. And the first chef that I worked under, he actually got fired for drinking on the job, but also just he was way above what he should have been doing there. As far as like how fancy it was. We had some people, the clientele that would come in there was very either upscale, like CEOs, or the people that worked on the bottom floor because it was kind of the vacation spot for all of the company. So, both sides would come and hang out and, drink and eat and all this other stuff and be merry and have a lot of fun. And that's what made it fun. That's what made that job fun. But so working there, and the first guy that I worked for, great. I loved him. Taught me how to order, taught me how to do things. Then the second guy came in. Well, actually, he leaves. The first guy leaves, and the guy that I was talking about earlier, he's now my manager, and he and I work hand in hand together. We actually wind up working 12 hours a day every single day because it's seasonal. Once you get towards the end of the season and people start leaving and getting quitting or fired or whatever, uh the higher ups just don't hire anybody else. So you really become shorthanded, or people don't want the job because it's like, oh, you only have a week to work. So he and I end up working 12 hours a day. Literally, we looked at our hours one week, like one pay period, and we had 100 hours in 2 weeks. And that was right before Bay Day. So that was a brutal job. Again, loved it. Even then, like during we decided one day, like just a stupid example, we decided one day that we were gonna make sour cream and we were so exhausted that we just like went outside and so with sour cream, if you're making it in a container, you have to like shake it a lot. So we just went outside and like literally put our heads down on the table and rolled the sour cream container back and forth until we made it. It was just for us. It wasn't for anybody else. But so that was fun. But another thing that was fun, and I should have listened to this guy, was we had a Cisco worker who um he was our sales rep. Cisco is a food purveyor, if you don't know. It's like Cheney Brothers or any of these different things. And he came in and he was talking to us and he was like, yeah, um, he's talking to me specifically. He was like, you need to either keep this job forever or come and work at Cisco because sales is where it's at. Sales is what's gonna get you along in life. Whenever it comes to culinary arts. And that's because with culinary arts, hardly ever is there any benefits or pay to support you getting your own health insurance and things like that. So over time, your body starts breaking down. You also can't afford retirement because you pretty much live check to check. And so you wind up living and working in the food industry until you either die of a heart attack, die of alcoholism or blank abuse, um, or you just work there forever until you're too old to work. And that's really how it is. I actually worked with a guy that was like supposed to retire in a few years, but um, couldn't retire because he was not making enough money. But anyway, I'll try to fast forward through this because that was like the most memorable job for me because I enjoyed it. But towards the end of that job, my manager, she let me kind of be a manager whenever one of them left. And I think if I was a little bit older, had a little bit more experience, I probably would have been the manager. And also one of the so my boss, she lived out of state, and would come down and check on us every once in a while. But there was another lady that worked there that was very jealous of anybody who made similar pay to her, even though she wasn't in the food part of it. She was very jealous of people who tried to make more money than her, and she was wanting to be a manager, even though she had no right being a manager. I don't want to give anything away, but she had no right being a manager. Um, so she would pit people against each other, especially since she worked during the day. She would put people against people at night, and that's where a lot of contingents came from for me and the day shift. Even a person that I got a job there, sorry, uh, we butted heads, even though we were very good friends before that, and then after, because she switched shifts, she started working with me at night, and then she was like, "Oh, wow, okay, this person pit me against you." That's restaurant industry. I should have learned that, but I didn't. And there's a few other instances like that. But later on, we get one manager, and he seemed like your best friend. He was really awesome and funny and all this other stuff. And till he wasn't, and he started doing sketchy things, and and the menu was just absolute crap because he was trying to get everything under budget. And by getting everything under budget, he would cut people. He would make really crappy food. I don't know if he was getting not budgets, but bonuses for doing that, but we didn't. None of the staff did. Um, but it would be like spaghetti, like not good spaghetti, but just like he called it big ziti, but it wasn't really ziti. It was big like spaghetti. And it just looked terrible. Um, and that was a big thing my boss was into at the time whenever I started. But later on, she was just like, I think she was on the way out the door and trying to start a family and all this other stuff. So she was like, whatever, I don't really care either. But if it wasn't for this guy, I would probably still be working there. I just enjoyed the job so much, and I would get like a little side job, if anything, um, in between the seasons. But I mean, the pay really was so good that I didn't have to. Um, I could save money and then be able to make it. It was only like a month, you know, and then it would be a month during the winter and a month during the summer because it's too hot and cold to go fishing, and that's like the big draw there. So anyway, I this guy he would pit people against each other so bad, and he would also do things so sketchy. Like he would there was one time that him and a girl who used to work in HR, so why he did this in front of her beyond me, but she wound up getting fired because of his little snake tongue he had. But he dropped a whole pan. We had a continental breakfast on the people's last day. They would stay 3 days, and then the next people come in. So we'd have a continental breakfast on the last day, and he dropped a whole pan of like bagels and muffins and all this other stuff on the ground, and picked it all up and put it on the thing, and told me and her if we told anybody we'd be fired. So she wound up being fired. Um, so yeah, and I even told my boss that like whenever I left, she was like, "Oh, why are you leaving? Like I thought you were having, such a good time and all this other stuff here." And I said, "Him. It's either me or him." And she chose him, so I was like, "All right, whatever." So anyway, that I leaving that job because I liked it so much. I mean, it was beautiful. It was right on the river, all this other stuff. I loved it. Um, After leaving that job, I went into like a little bit of a depression and didn't work for like close to a year. And then I started working at a, I'm just going to say it. If somebody watches this and knows what I'm talking about, then okay, at this point. I worked at a sushi place, and it started out very small. Like this sushi place it was very small. It's very big now. I don't eat there, but I'm glad that he has a lot of business. It's bringing in a lot of revenue and some jobs. But and this one I'll keep short. Worked there, and essentially the first day that I started, he was like, "Okay, I was." Let me back up. I was eating there, you know, and hanging out with the guy behind the counter, and loved him. He was like a brother to me for a long time. But working there, and he's like, "All right, or I was hanging out there, should I say?" And I'd help out a little bit and stuff like that, but mainly just keeping him company during slow hours and everything. Um, and he was like, I was like, "Yeah, I need a job, whatever." He's like, "Oh, why don't you try working for me, for a couple days, and I won't pay you, but just come work with me, see how it goes. We'll see what happens." So I worked 12 hours, zero pay, for three or 4 days, zero pay. But because I don't know my self-worth, this is another thing in the restaurant industry that you'll notice. It's a lot of people are either super cocky or don't know their self-worth. I stand on that side. So I'm working there, no pay, 12 hours a day. Then whenever I start, I will put it this way. I was making maybe $1 more than my first pay at Popeyes minimum wage. Crazy. I just can't believe now looking back on things and working with two bosses, because I've had two bosses since being out of the restaurant industry, that actually show people appreciation. Uh, it, I, it's kind of crazy. Like, I was making less at this job, even though I've had more experience than I did at my first like real culinary arts job, the fish camp. Um, so worked there. I worked there for about a year, and again, even I was working there, and me and him both would work there 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, every single day. Every single day would work 12 hours a day, and yeah, made that same pay for a while, and then finally he was like, "All right, I'll bump you up. I'll bump you up to. I'll tell you the number. I'll bump you up to $10 an hour." It's like, oh my goodness, and because again, I didn't have self worth. Oh, and I'll tell you why it wound up being like that. So I was like paying my bills. I was only income at that time, paying all the bills, and I was raising Juliet. So again, I was only income at this time. All my money was going to bills. All my money was going to food, and whatever was left over, we uh, we didn't have anything left over. Let me put it that way. So I came in one day, my shoes were talking. If you've worked in the restaurant industry, you'll know what I mean. Grease and stuff breaks down your shoes like crazy. So my shoes were talking. And he looked at my shoes. They were like that for probably a month. He looked down at my shoes. He's like, "What's going on with your shoes?" I was like, "Keep in mind, he just, with cash, bought a brand new truck, right?" Um, he's like, "What's wrong with your shoes?" I was like, "You don't pay me enough to buy new shoes, buddy." You're like, it's either bills, food for my daughter, or shoes. Which one am I gonna pick? Um, so he was like, "Oh, are you kidding me?" And so he finally gave me enough money, like paid me enough where I could go get some new shoes, all this other stuff. But in this time, he and I both were alcoholics at this time. I mean, just blatantly speaking, he got his beer and liquor license, and he and I, well, he didn't have liquor license, so he couldn't serve liquor. But he and I would go out and, or somebody would go out and get us Crown Apple, and like people would just come up to the bar and hang out with us and bring BYOB kind of thing. And so we'd have a good time. And for a long time, it was awesome. Not just the alcohol, but just hanging out with him, all this different stuff. But then he like went down this whole enlightenment journey and just went off the deep end and never changed back. And it's kind of crazy. But um, yeah, after a while, I looked at my check and I saw it was less. And that's whenever I started looking for another job, but I saw it was less. And I was like, "What's going on here?" He's like, "Well, I see that you're not working as hard or fast," even though I was the one keeping it afloat. Okay. The I stopped drinking at that time. So I was literally keeping things afloat on that in the sushi bar. And he was like, "Oh, I see that you're not doing as much or whatever. So I just took some of your pay," which is very illegal. Like if your employee works 12 hours a day every day, well, at the time I was like, I'm taking off Sunday. I have to. But if your employee works those hours, you can't just, you know, preemptively or post whatever after they've done the work, take their money away. But again, I didn't have self worth, so I was like, I'm not going to argue. I didn't like conflict at the time. I do now. I will. I don't like conflict, but I will stand up for myself now. You know, I have too much to lose not doing that. So I was like, okay, whatever. So I started looking for another job, found another one. I could work both, but I just told him, okay, 2 weeks and I'm done, or a week and I'm done. So since then, he has come to Lara because he and all three of us worked together. That's where she and I met. He's come to, he has come to Lara and been like, I totally regret how I treated him. He never came to me about this, but totally regret treating him like that. He is the best sushi chef in our location, hands down. And there's another sushi place in town that apparently his wife went and kind of got the tea on them and then brought it back to him. So, just kind of shows you what kind of individuals we're working with here. But so then the next place I worked, it was a little breakfast lunch place, and again, I'm not going to get too into the weeds there. Just that one boils down to management. Food was good, the employees were good. There's a couple iffy ones. Overall, good work environment. The crew that I started with, the kitchen crew that I started with, phenomenal. The main guy, absolutely phenomenal. Just very even keeled, just wanted to come in, do his job, did a great job. And the lady that owned the place, just the person who is in that seat, the headline cook seat, is going to be the one that gets berated the most. There's been some nicknames that I can't say on here, not said by me, about her that were kind of wild, but true. But anybody that was in that hot seat, I mean, whenever I first walked in, she would berate him and then come to me and like talk me up like I was the best person in the world. And I realized that's her. It was almost like a cult working there because um it was very much love bombing, and then once you're in that hot seat, just absolutely ripping you down. And yeah, so um all the good ones got fired. Eventually the guy who he and I wound up being pretty good friends while I worked there. He was in the hot seat, just again sitting there. She berated him the whole time, and did good things for him. Got him a car, all this other stuff, and I mean, that's what she did. There was one guy, that the disabled gentleman that I was talking about. He was hard of hearing, and did some really good things for him. I think he still's on good footing with her, but so she could do good things, and she did, but the bad things were so bad. It was unbelievable. It's like having Gordon Ramsay but worse, because it didn't have the cameras on and all this other stuff. Um, but so that guy, he and I became pretty good friends and all this other stuff, and he ends up quitting on the spot. Same kind of thing. I'm pretty sure it actually happened very similarly to what happened to him, which was the first guy that I was talking about, literally looked at him and said, "Here you go," because he had a job in line. He could go back to one of the other places that he worked at for 20 years and just step back into that spot. So same thing happened to me where it was like super busy day. The guy was like, "Here you go, I'm done." And I was like, "All right, well, I guess I'm making omelets and stuff now and doing the hotline." And so I did that for a while, and then things happened with my stepdad where he had cancer and my papa and everything, and I was having to miss some days and all this other stuff. And luckily, I that's whenever I started kind of, working part time at the funeral home, and was able to leave that job and go into the funeral home. And that's where I found, hey, if you're working somewhere, you can have kindness. Like, your boss can be nice to you and actually treat you with respect, and really appreciate the work that you do. And that was the first time I ever felt like that in work. And that's because for 8 years, almost 10 years, I worked in the food industry, and it was miserable the whole time, miserable, except for my very first job. That was it. So all of that to be said, don't work in the food industry unless you have no other choice. Um, And if you are thinking about it, if you're a young person thinking about going into the food industry, read Anthony Bourdain's Kitchen Confidential. And that is one of the most, and if you're going into the food industry, you might struggle with reading, just like I did. And, that's why I picked up restaurant work, because it was, didn't have to read except for the tickets. So if you are that type of person, get the audiobook. Listen to the audiobook. I'm telling you, that will be the best book. You will, if you are in the restaurant industry and you are actually following through with that, that will be the single most important book that you read. Period. Period. Um, so outside of that, and now that I'm done with the culinary arts, again, the best careers that I've been in, and the worst, but the best careers that I've been in, I have not had to have an education. In the funeral business, I wanted to go to school for that, but um, that one is, if you don't have a family, that is a really good business to be in. It is hard, to be in that business, just because you're going to be on call all the time. It's going to be just like being a firefighter. You are a what we called a last responder. You are there at some of the people's, and I'm not going to go too far into this because I just really wanted to encapsulate the restaurant industry thing. But if you are in the funeral business, I mean, really, you are underappreciated, by the general populace, not by the people that you work for, but the general populace. It's like during COVID, nobody really talked about the funeral side of things, like we would hear on the news and stuff, and they did. The fire department and first responders and all these other people, doctors, everybody, godsend. But nobody really understands because we're kind of like, nobody wants to talk about death. Um, so very underappreciated, and you're going to be on call all the time. That's just part of it. Wonderful job, especially if you feel called to it and you can handle it. Wonderful job. You will never feel more, um, more compassion for and from humanity than working in the funeral industry. It just really sheds a lot of light on a lot of things, in life. At 27 to 20, I can't remember. I think it was 27 to 30, somewhere around there is how long I've worked there. Um, and I gained a whole new appreciation for life. Most people don't really start thinking about death and what happens after it and how how beautiful life is until they're, in their mid 30s, I would say. Whenever you're starting to feel all the aches and pains, that's whenever you start really thinking about it. But I started thinking about it earlier, so I was able to come to terms with my own death, and then also because I saw, some of my loved ones die. I saw three people there die, and I got to see, the reactions of the people that I care for, the people who were left behind. Um, I got to see their reactions while talking to them. Like my grandmother, I was talking to her about making her arrangements, and what does she have arranged, because it's important to know those things. It's important to go ask your mother, and maybe I'll make a whole video about this, but it's important to ask your mother and grandmother and fathers and all these different things, or all these different people. It's very important to know, hey, where where do we stand here? Like, what plans do you have? Especially if they have a lot of stuff and your family doesn't get along, it is so important to not weasel them and tell them, "Hey, you need to go do this," because people do that. It's important to say, you need to go talk to a funeral director. Don't let me impede you. You need to go do that while you're still sound of mind, and not, on a deathbed and can't really understand what's going on, where, one person might get everything. Anyway, neither here nor there. Wonderful career, wonderful job. Not for the faint of heart. There's a lot. There's a lot to it. There's a lot of things that you have to be mentally capable and able to do. And this newer generation kind of scares me with that because they're so social media driven that I'm afraid, and I'm sure they have, they'll take their phones in places that they don't need to be. I'll leave that there. But um, if you are capable of doing that and being very solemn in certain times and able to help people, wonderful job. If you have a caring heart, wonderful job. I can't express that enough. And I get some of the same things from my maintenance job thing, where I go in, somebody's struggling, maybe their AC isn't working, and it's something simple. I go in there, fix it, and they're like, "Oh my goodness, you saved the day!" Like it really does make you feel like a superhero sometimes. But great career path, in general with the funeral home industry. But again, if you have a family, it is hard. I mean, I had a family of four at home, family of no, four kids, but six of us here at the time, um, and it was Mother's Day, Father's Day, Christmas, all of these days, birthdays, everything. You have to be on call. Especially I was the youngest one there as far as being able to go on calls. Um, so I was the one, especially during COVID. I was the one, and it was hard, but it was very gratifying. I would never change that for the world. But without, or not without any further ado, but now that all the career path stuff, all the, you know, education part is done, let's get on to a light subject and talk about what we did today, and then I'll get into like some back of the house stuff, some new um, a new device that I got and stuff like that, to help me better edit and take care of you guys and stuff like that. So today, we went kayaking. We got a kayak a few months ago now, and we've been exploring a few little water holes here and there. But recently, I mean, today we went to a spring that we went to not too long ago, where it kind of the springs up here has a little waterfall that comes down, and then it goes out into like the river. But there's like this little opening area before that, and what a this is gonna sound really stupid. Like as soon as I popped in my head, it sounded stupid, but I do mean this, and I don't say this uh lightly. It was a very magical day. Um, we woke up. We had zero plans to go to the springs. Lara and I actually were like, okay, we're gonna wake up at 8. Did not happen. We did not wake up at 8 on the weekends. I don't know what delusion I thought was going through my mind. Take Aaron to the comic book store, come back here and then record and edit, and that's gonna be our day. And get ready for the week. But and go kayaking. We were planning on going kayaking still. We're going to record and then go kayaking, but we're going to just do it at a place nearby. The place that we went was an hour away. It was kind of long trek, but it was worth it. Excuse me. So I was loading up the kayak. I was having the girls help me because I think it's important for all of them to know how to load it up. Eventually, I want them to be able to do it themselves. Aaron's pretty good helping, but I wanted the girls to understand how to do it too. Juliet helped a couple times too. But this was actually the first time Lyric went kayaking. I'm glad it happened the way it did. But they're like, "Oh, we want to go to the springs that way." Well, because we only have one kayak, it's a tandem kayak, so only two people can go at a time. They're like, "We want to go to the springs so we can, swim while y'all go kayaking or whatever." And so we looked up closest place that has swimming and kayaking and everything else that we want. And we found this very great place. And I'll leave it down in the comments. I think it's far enough away from us where um, I won't give any locations away. Larry's already said where we lived. But anyway, um, so we look it up. We drive an hour. It was a good drive, beautiful drive from where we're at. A lot of wooded areas. There's a place that's got a lot of sand dunes and stuff like that. So really cool little drive. Listen to music. Listen to some John Denver on the way out there. But we get there, and like I said, very beautiful scenic area. Just one big watering hole. Actually, maybe I won't say this. We found a little trinket last time we went in the spring, and it's pretty cool. Yeah, you can see. Pay attention to the background of my previous videos and whenever I'm sitting on the other side, and you'll see it if you look closely. So we get there, we put in, and the girls go and do their thing, and Aaron goes and swims and everything. And Lara and I, we're paddling around, we're doing our thing, nothing crazy is going on. We see some birds. The birds are wild, they just let you get right up on them. But we're looking at these birds, they're kind of diving down into the water and all this cool stuff, and it's really cool. And I look behind me and I see this thing. It looks like a person sitting up out of the water. Just this huge, like, I don't know. And I'm like, what the, what the is that? And Lara turns around and we see a manatee just poking his head out of the water. I've seen one manatee in my life. Scared the crap out of me then too. But turn around, and if you don't know, manatee, especially whenever it's cooler, they go to springs to get warm, and that's where they kind of hang out during the winter. It's not cold right now, but it's like 60 degrees, which is kind of cold for us. So we turn around, and just keep in mind, I am very rule abiding. I don't know what the distance is from human to manatee, but I try to keep my distance to the best of my ability. Um, we kept on drifting too close, I think, and I did feel bad about that in one situation. I'll tell you about that in a second. But so Lara and I look, and we counted 11 manatee in this one area, and we just saw them, and it was so cool watching them come up. And maybe if I can, I'll put some pictures and videos here as well, so you can see them and the birds and all that different stuff. But it was so crazy. You don't realize how big these animals are. I mean, they are huge compared to your little kayak that you're in. Scared the mother lover out of me. But it was really cool to see. And so we're paddling around, and I thought I saw a dead one. I'm not even gonna lie. Because you saw the little pack of them over here, and then way probably, I don't know, few yards away, there's another one way over here, and it just was floating there. Like there was another little kayak. People are out there, inflatable kayaks. It's crazy. I'm like, not me, but they're kind of just like floating right there next to this manatee, and they're floating by and keep on going. Never once did it poke its head up. All the other ones are kind of like poking their snouts up out of the water and breathing and stuff. And we go over by it, and again, you don't really. It's just sitting there, like, I'm like, oh, jeez, this thing's dead. That's not cool. I don't know what to do in this case. But so we go back. I'm like, all right, Lara's like, I want to show the kids this. So she goes, gets Aaron. I show him. He's like, oh, that's awesome. Sees birds, all this other stuff. Juliet, same thing. But whenever Juliet was there, an airboat came up. They were doing airboat tours and scared all the manatee away. Well, out of that vicinity there. So we went over to the one that I thought was dead, and it was actually a mother, and it had another little baby manatee poking its little snout out of the water. It was so cool. Um, and so I guess she wanted to be away from the other ones so she could get some like privacy or something. I don't know. It was weird, but it was really cool to see the little baby manatee. But I still didn't see the mom's head poke out, so I was like kind of still afraid it was dead. But showed Juliet the bird, all this other stuff. We go over next to the little waterfall that they had there, and then I get Lyric, and again, first time she's ever been out on a kayak. And um well, on the way back with Juliet, we see a gator kind of circling around there. It's a little tiny one, but still keep your distance away from the babies because there's always a bigger one nearby. But anyway, pick up Lyric, take her. As I'm waiting for Lyric, um there's a bunch of fishermen, or not fishermen, but people fishing near me, and one of them caught a turtle, a little snapper turtle. I felt bad for it, but it let itself out, let itself go, and they let it back into the water and everything. But it's really cool just seeing nature, and in just being in nature is cool, and you don't realize it until you're out in it. And seeing the fish flop out of the water was those are funny because it's just like, whoop, here I am. But anyway, so Larry gets in, and we're paddling around, and I've told everybody, whenever they got off, don't tell them, don't tell the next person. I want it to be a surprise. Don't tell them what's out here, what we're gonna do. And I said, anybody tell you what's out here or anything? And She's like, no. I said, well, there's some cool birds out here. So we start paddling, and I'm looking around, and all the manatee were gone. On the way back with Juliet, I saw one, but I didn't see any more. So I was like, let me go show her this mom. And the mom had started moving, and I think she had twins. I think she had two twin little manatee following her, and so we got to see it. But we were like paddling, and the manatee were right here, and we were kind of like going this way, and then I kind of like do a little circle, and I go this way again, and it was just sitting there. But then it started coming towards us, and I was like, "Oh crap, we got to get out of here, otherwise, we could get in trouble or hurt this animal. I don't want to hurt this animal at all." So we start paddling. We paddle away, and there's a bird. I showed all three of them the same bird, or all four of them. No, all three of them. Sorry. It's just they had this like one post out in the middle of nowhere. Really, it was like this one post or maybe a tree. It was kind of close to the edge of the water, or edge of the bank there, and he just sat there. And he would let you get so close. You're gonna see these pictures, and I'm telling you, these pictures are from right here to right here. That's how close this dang bird was before he jumped in the water. Um, and so I took her to see that bird and whatever. And we said we're heading back, and I see what looks like sun rays, but it's actually the manatee again. And so we go and paddle up next to it. And I think we may have aggravated mom. I really did feel bad because she started. I mean, we were still way away from it, but she started swimming towards us, and I feel like it may have been aggressive. So we paddled out of there, and I was like, yeah, I think we messed up and got too close. I really did feel bad because I didn't want to interrupt the mother and the children. I couldn't tell if there was really two or not. There was definitely three there at one point, but may have been another adult one that may have swam off after that. But I did feel bad interrupting the mother and calf doing their thing. But anyway, dropped her off, and then we went swimming, and just the water there really wasn't bad. It was kind of colder because normally springs are relatively colder. It's like 72 degrees all year round. But whenever it's summertime and you get out and it's 100 degrees and then it's 72, it feels absolutely frigid in that water. But today, because it was kind of cold outside, it felt pretty good in the water. It was actually shocking. And there was this big turtle in the spring that everybody was kind of freaking out about. It's really cool. Um, but yeah, so that was kind of the day there. And then I came home and almost passed out immediately. I had to get up and kind of start moving so I could record. And then Lara went in there right after me and passed out. I had to go to the store and get some stuff, but she went to sleep after that. But now on to the back of the house kind of stuff that maybe most people wouldn't care about. Okay, if you're watching this content, you probably don't care about computers and stuff like that. So for the last, let's see, since 2020, whenever the first M1 Max came out, I've been recording. Everything that you've seen on this channel has been edited or streamed or whatever on my M1 Mac. And I'm going to tell you, and I might make a short about this, or make another video about this, because I do think it's important to educate yourself on what you're getting before you get it. We all know Macs are expensive, right? But they are workhorses, and they are good at editing, and they are good at what they do. But set yourself up for some expectation. One, if you're looking for a Mac for gaming, you're not going to get it. You can get some emulators, you can get a couple games on there, but you're not going to be gaming on a Mac, period. They just don't have enough support from different, you know, different game manufacturers and stuff like that, or producers, whatever. They just don't have enough support from them. Like you can play BioShock. I think the best thing that you can do on there is probably like if you have an Xbox subscription, you can do the cloud gaming or whatever, and it's okay. I mean, I wouldn't be playing Fortnite on there or whatever, but it's all right. So set yourself up for expectations on there, and also do your research on what you're getting. If you think that you're gonna be doing heavy editing on a M1 Mac, like a MacBook Air, you're not. You're just not. Not in a efficient way. Let me put it that way. I haven't edited on the machine that I have yet. but I can already tell things are a lot faster. So I messed up whenever I ordered my M1 Mac, and the lady kind of was trying to persuade me to upgrade, and I was like, "Oh, just sales tactic," but I should have listened to my Mac representative, okay, or my Apple representative. Um, if you get a Mac and you get the 8-core CPU, you are setting yourself up for massive disappointment and massive failure on all departments. If you're streaming, if you're editing, if you're doing any heavy graphic or CPU based things, you are setting yourself up for failure. I think they should stop making the 8 gig, or not 8 gig, 8-core CPU, period. Because it was great for a lot of basic tasks, or maybe not put it in the pro, because the pro makes it sound like, hey, you're going to be able to do all the work that you need to do. Just not the case. So the one that I got was the M1 13 or 14 inch MacBook Pro with the 8 core CPU. So literally the bottom of the barrel of the MacBook Pros. And there was things that I liked about it. Like I liked the touch bar and stuff like that, but the bad things were like it came with hardly any memory, which is fine. You know, you can get a 1 terabyte SSD or whatever for relatively cheap, you know, compared to the Mac especially. You can get memory. The Mac that I have now not doesn't have a lot of memory either, but that's okay. I don't care about that. I can do what I need to do with what I have now. Um but it only had two lightning ports, which is kind of crazy. Now that I'm looking at what I have now, kind of ridiculous that it had 2 ports. So hold on, let me get the thing that I've had to use. One, two, three. So I've had to use this Anchor dongle here. Great product, absolutely great product. I don't know. Uh, Power Expand plus 7-in-1 USB-C media hub. Um, great product, especially because it has those right there. The current Mac that I have does not have the Type A, which is fine for the most part. I can still use this. Lara's using the other computer. I'm going to teach her how to edit and stuff. The only problem with this is there's 2 Type C. You can see one's right there and then one's on the back here. And this Type C with all these ports on this side, that one only does power. It doesn't. So really, you're only getting one Type C, but you're taking up one of the Type C. So on this one, it wouldn't be so bad. But yeah. So really, it's not much of a good trade off because you're still like, if you need 3 Type C things, well, you're kind of SOL. Um, the only reason why I need this now is actually an Elgato problem. The Elgato that I have, the cable that comes with it, it's Type C to the Elgato, but to the computer it's a Type A. And if you try to use that Type C, then it just doesn't work. You literally have to use the cable that came with the thing to work it, because I've tried it with a high-end Type C and it just was not working. Um, which is weird. But even if you decide right now to get a MacBook, like a M1 MacBook, I think I really could have just got a M1 MacBook with like higher CPU and did a lot more. Sorry, my eyes are itching. A lot more with it than just the 8 gig. So even if I would have got, I think the one that I have is like 12 core. I keep on saying gig, but I'm meaning core. I think the one that I have is 12. I can already tell you it's going to be 1,000 times better. But I think I could have probably got away with that with, you know, an older model. Um, M1, M2, M3, whatever. Um, if you are in the market for one for a MacBook, and you have, even if it's the current model, even if it's a M4 MacBook or whatever's coming out next, if you're saving up for that computer right now, or if you're planning on taking out a credit card or a loan or whatever for that MacBook, do not get the MacBook or the 8-core MacBook. I know it's tempting to get that, because it's like a couple $100 difference in one to the other. You don't have to get the 16-inch, but don't get the 8-core, get a 12-core. If you can get a 16-core, even better. But get the 8-core because you're going to be able to do what you need, or get the 12-core and you'll be able to do whatever you need to do proficiently, very, very well. Otherwise, you're going, like I said, you're going to be very disappointed. The next thing with that is I highly recommend, and most people probably won't because you can get it cheaper on Amazon, but I recommend taking the time and getting your Mac straight from Apple. Like if you have an Apple store, this is what I'm really saying. If you have an Apple store, order it online, but order it for pickup. What a wonderful experience. I mean, it's a little bit extra for me because I had to go out to Jack's to get it, and my daughter lives out there, so I was able to visit with her and hang out with the family. Her and pretty much all my girls, Lara, and then my 3 girls, were able to all hang out together. And we went to it's in the town center, and so we were able to see these bougie stores and kind of peruse around. And we went in there for our appointment, and then it's busy in there, but just seeing the different displays, like I have such an appreciation for the aesthetic that Apple has. Everybody does, but I have such a, like, the displays are really cool, and you don't really get to see them anywhere else. Like if you go to Walmart and you see an Apple device, it's just there. But like there, for instance, just looking at the AirPods, they have all the different models on the wall. I should have taken pictures so I could show it in this video, but I didn't think about it. And they have like one core part of it, and then they have this display. It's really interesting, and you could probably find pictures of it online, but just seeing it in person is really cool. It's almost like seeing an art exhibit. Um, and then just the people, they were really cool. Like, um, or efficient, should I say? They were cool, but very efficient. Um, like we walk in, guy's like, "Oh, you have an appointment? Okay, go right over to this guy," and he kind of just is talking you up, and just checking you in, and that's all it is. Like that's all he's doing. And if you're not really paying attention, you don't really see the flow of things, but you see a guy, the guy that you're talking with is there talking to you, but somebody else is going to the back, getting your computer, taking the little sticker off that has your name on it and everything. And your guys bring it, like he gives it to your guy and he's like, "Here you go," like kind of nonchalantly, and he puts it in the bag for you and everything. The bags are great, by the way. Just I don't want to just sit here and dote on Apple, but the bag was fantastic. It was kind of crazy. It was supposedly made all of paper, but very like robust. I don't know. Lara was like, "I want the bag. Give me the bag." Hold on, I have to sneeze. 1, 2, 3. Anyway, sorry about that. So I mean, the guy was like talking about Ramadan and like how he's doing Ramadan and kind of describing that to us and everything. So really just cool, just whole hour that we are there at the town center was just really cool. Just like walk around doing our thing, and then we went and had lunch and everything afterward. But yeah, I recommend doing that. So I got the M4 12 core CPU, like kind of middle grade on that one. Um, the 16-inch one, night and day difference. Again, if I had my choice, if I was you, and I was shopping for a Mac, I'd probably say, like, if you're trying to save money, I would probably say get either a last gen, or like, if you wanted to get a M1. I mean, like I said, all the videos that I've done on this channel, on other channels that I've done some things that I've since taken down that were heavily edited, and I did it on DaVinci Resolve. And yeah, I mean, it takes a long time to render, but great. I mean, great little computer. The 14-inch was great. If you have a monitor, just hook it up to the monitor. Just plug it right in. Get one of these, plug it in with the HDMI side, and close your Mac. Right. Now that I have this bigger display, I don't think I could ever go back to a smaller one. Just for the pure convenience of, like, if I needed to edit and also find pictures, that was like my biggest hardship, because you can kind of pin the window that you're editing in on one side and then look around. But the 14-inch was so small that you couldn't really do that efficiently. Like, I did it, but now that I have this, I can, like, oh, I can definitely see where this is going to come in a lot of handy. Um, if you're just doing light stuff, absolutely, the 8 core, that would be fine. If you're doing simple video, simple video editing, like on, what is it, Apple Movies or whatever it's called. If you're doing simple photo editing, like, I do some stuff in Lightroom, for the thumbnails and stuff, Canva, things like that. None of that is going to be too crazy, so that's fine. But if you're doing legit video editing on DaVinci Resolve or on um, Final Cut Pro, I'm going to give you a tip for this in a second. I might be able to leave the link down below. I if I can find it again. Um, definitely go up to 16-inch, 12 core. If you have the money for the, I'm going to put it this way: if you have the money for the M1 8 core, continue saving for a little bit longer. It sucks. I'm impatient. It sucks to be hindered by a device that you don't have. It sucks worse being hindered by a device that you rush to get, and it isn't. It's a wow. I can't say that. That you rushed for something that's less efficient than what you need. I mean, like I said, I've been dealing with this for 5 years with streaming issues because the CPU wasn't strong enough and my internet. Slow render times. I mean, it would take hours to render certain videos. And just it was just bad. For basic stuff, it was fine, but anyway, I've already gone over that. Yeah, I think that's about it. So with editing stuff, DaVinci Resolve is good. I'm not going to drag on to this for too long. DaVinci Resolve is good, is great, actually. The free version. I've never used paid version. Final Cut Pro, I love that because of how simple it is. It is very, very simple to learn how to use and utilize all the tools that it has. You can get it. So if you go onto the Apple Store and you look for Final Cut Pro, it's $200. You can get anybody can get a student version of Final Cut Pro. You just have to look it up. Student Final Cut Pro. You can get that for, I think it's $200 or $300, but it comes with Final Cut Pro. I think GarageBand's already on your computer, but Final Cut Pro, what is it? It comes with a bunch of stuff. Compressor. I'm drawing a blank. Stage. Pretty much anything that you need to make movies, music, and compress everything, you get it all. I think all of them together is like pushing I want to say $800+ if you got them individually, because it's like Final Cut Pro's $200, and then the other one's like $200, and then all the other ones are a bunch of $50 ones. Some of them are unnecessary. Will I ever use them? Maybe not. I have them. If I need them, or if I need to let somebody else use them, I have them. Also, we got my computer with a student discount. I don't know how that is. Or yeah, student discount. So if you're talking to your Mac representative, all Lara did, because she was the one ordering it for me, the person was like, "Are you using this for educational purposes?" And Lara's like, "Well, not really. He's learning on it. He's learning how to edit on there." And he's like, "Okay," and just extra couple $100 off. So maybe you can do the same thing. Who knows? And the reason that they can do that, as far as the software is concerned, they're not a software company. They make software, and the software that they make is good for the devices that they make it on. But they're not. Let me put it this way: they're not in software sales. They're in hardware sales. So if they can get you into the door with the hardware, with the software, then you have to use their hardware. That's what they're trying to do with that. It's like you can't use Final Cut Pro on anything but a Mac. So once you get that, you're kind of locked into the system, unless you switch over to something else. But I think that's everything as far as that's concerned. Are there other computers out there that can do everything that I need my Mac to do? Probably. Are they probably cheaper? Probably. I do enjoy my Mac. It is what it is. I'm excited to edit this on it. I kind of wish that this video was more editing intensive, because I really want to see what this can do, but there's not really a lot of editing whenever it's just me and you. It's gonna be a couple cuts from here, like from me sneezing and stuff, but and adding some pictures, but nothing else. I'm kind of excited to see what the coloring can do on here. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. I enjoyed it. If you stuck around to the end, don't forget to like and subscribe. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Oh, I forgot to say the catchphrase, because Lara's not here. We'll see you in the next one. And stay a little hot, because we are. Toodaloo, ta-ta for now.